What's up, YouTube? It has been a long time. It's now September 2nd. My last video was on September 19th of 2019, almost an entire year later. So I wanted to circle back, get a refresh on this because it's quarantine, it's COVID time, it's 2020. Let's use this time wisely. We'll get cracking on some stuff. So in my last video, I said that we're going to be making a little bit of a starter page. That's not necessarily true because I realized I just touched a little bit on the navbar, and I actually want to focus a little bit more on that before we decide to template out a website. The navbar is pretty critical. I mean, it's how users get around on your website. Like, you go to any website and you get around by clicking on a navbar in the beginning, right? Home or portfolio or contact. Like, this is important stuff. So we'll set up a basic navbar, nothing crazy fancy, and then we're going to import a little bit of CSS that I'll walk you through. I'll answer all the CSS questions later in a separate course, but for now I want to give you a little taste on, hey, this is how we can actually start to style a navbar. Because in the end of the game, how you actually style a website really impacts how long and how useful people actually find your website. Like, how long do they spend on your website? If it's garbage, they're gonna click away and try to find something else. If it's good, you might retain some people. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, guys, so we're gonna go ahead and open up our index.html. We're gonna get started with the Emmet abbreviation of HTML, hop down to 5, and then we have our basic template. Next, we're gonna do nav, and we're gonna do 2 div tags. Hit enter. Inside div tag number 1, we're gonna do an anchor tag. We're gonna do a link. And we're just gonna erase that. We're gonna create a pound sign. And we're just gonna click home. Down here, we're gonna create 3 of them. So we'll do a times 3, bada boom. Three, perfect. Why I have them in 2 div tags is because we're gonna structure a little bit of CSS into the workings here. And the reason why is because when we hit save and we open it up in Google Chrome, refresh, you can see they stack on one another, and that's typically not how you want a navigation bar to look. So we're gonna go back into our VS Code, and we're gonna create a new file by hitting Control N. If you're a Mac user, it's Command N. Down here in the bottom right, we can just select CSS. And the basics of CSS is this. You can target any HTML tag by just typing it in. So if we wanted to target the navbar, we would just say nav. And then we would have an opening bracket and a closing bracket there. To create something that doesn't target every single element that is listed, so right, if let's say we type in H2, a lot of times a website is going to have multiple H2 tags or multiple heading tags, and we don't necessarily want to apply styling to all of those tags. The way to get around this is to create something called a class. How we do that is we do a period and then we create a class name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do navbar, and then an opening and closing bracket. Now, in another series, I'm gonna dive a lot deeper into CSS, but for now, I'm just gonna cover the basics. So there's something called display. And you can see here, Emmet abbreviation recommends a couple of things, but we're just gonna click that. And when you hit enter on just display, it tabs over and opens up a lot of options for you. What we're just gonna focus on today is display flex. So go ahead and hit enter. We're gonna hit save. Pardon me, not on that. We're going to save, and we're actually just gonna call it index.css. What we need to do now is a couple things to the HTML file. In the top of here, I like to do this before the title tag. It's optional. This is just my personal preference of organization. We're going to do a link tag. Now let me show you just a little bit about the link tag. On W3 Schools, they've got a very basic demonstration that we're working off of, but the link tag defines the relationship between the current document and an external source. So that's an important thing to note. It's not just for CSS. It can actually be used to link in other documents or other external resources that you want to use. It's most often used to link external style sheets, which is very true, but there's a lot of extenuating circumstances that as you become more of an experienced developer, you'll definitely find more uses for the link tag. Here is rel, which is short for relationship, and href is just going to be targeting that index.css that we created. So we're going to go back here, and we're going to do rel style sheet, and href our index.css, which you can see here, VS Code already allows us to see, hey, we're targeting that specific file already. Now down here in the nav tag, we're going to type in class. In that, we're just going to type in navbar, which as we can see in our index.css file, is the class that we created. We'll hit save, and we're going to go over to our document and hit refresh. And now you can see they're not stacked on top of one another, they're actually parked next to each other. And you can tell by a lot of navigation bars, even here, that's how it's most familiar to the users. All the navigation for important links are next to one another. This actually is also another form of a navigation bar, but we're not going to cover that right now. All right, so we're going to go back to our VS Code. And for these links here, we're going to create a class called links. We're going to save, go over to our CSS file and create that class. And I don't want to get too far into the weeds. This is really to give you kind of a taste of how CSS is important and can help you organize things. These links, we're going to give them a width of 100%. We're going to do display flex. And then we're going to say justify content. How about space evenly, and hit save. Go back here. And now you can see that our home is sitting nicely there, but then we got 1, 2, 3 spaced evenly throughout the rest of the top. Next time, we're gonna build on this. I think it's gonna be really important we don't focus on a new element. I actually wanna keep the navbar. It's not gonna look pretty, but our focus is on HTML right now. Then we're gonna start working on the main tag. And we're gonna do, again, just not pretty stuff, it's HTML, but in the main tag, we're gonna add some headers, we're gonna add a paragraph. We'll probably do a little bit more inside there just to give you more structure with HTML. After that, we'll focus on a footer, and then that'll pretty much get you started with HTML. The cool part is that gets you started, but as a developer, the art of Googling is really important. So I'm giving you a really good foundation, but let's say you need to know how to put an audio tag in there, right? Or you need to find a source and insert a JavaScript source, right? Just Google that. Like W3 Schools is a really good resource for all those HTML tags as I've been showing you. Those far edge cases are really good scenarios to use that site for. So until then, guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll catch you later.